This interview is part of the History Heard project. The content of this interview may be used for historical research. However, no part of the video itself may be reproduced without the express written permission of an authorized representative of History Heard or Dick Morash. Today is July 27, 2009 at 3 o'clock p.m. This is an interview with Richard Morash in Anna Maria Island, Florida. He was born on June 14, 1933 in Boston, Massachusetts. I think that astronauts are the only people that are in danger when doing these kinds of things, but we know that you worked with people that were the victims of an explosion during working on this project. So what was that like to be in danger when you're working on it?
Well, I never felt like I was really that much in danger. We knew that we were working with very, very volatile fuels, things that could explode. So you had to have a lot of safety precautions. One of the things, for instance, we had to wear special shoes which would conduct the electricity out of your body, so that you didn't have, you ever walk across a road in a dry condition and touch a doorknob and you get a big spark and it jumps in your hand. Well, that happens almost all the time, but with these special shoes that we had on, of course, we'd have to, that would drain the electricity so you wouldn't spark when you did something like that. And that was one of the few things, of course we had all of the other safety things that people have to have all the time. Actually, one interesting thing that you may not know about nitroglycerin is it can give you a big headache. It absorbs into the skin very easily. So we used to have people who would walk through or put their hands into a big vat of nitroglycerin, and then they'd have like a migraine headache for a week afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
But nitroglycerin is also used, as a heart conditioner when people are having heart problems. And then they give them a little nitroglycerin pill and they put it under their tongue, so it helps the blood to thin, and so it's got some good purposes.
Yeah. Did you ever want to quit when you were doing it? Did you ever just get fed up with it?
No, not really. I was hoping that I would be able to stay in the business, launching rockets and getting into space travel for my whole career. But that wasn't to be so, because pretty much the world was kind of bored with space programs by the time we finished the final Apollo launch. I guess it was Apollo 17 or 18, back in about 1972 or so. And the government needed to redirect their money, their funding, away from the space programs. So we had big layoffs. You'll have a lot of people being laid off in the country today because of economic problems. We did at that time also. So I went out and found a different job working in some very exciting new engineering type things. So as a mechanical engineer with a degree, you learn an awful lot of different subjects, which allows you to be able to switch your particular project to other programs. So I was working as essentially a electromechanical engineer for the last 25 years, and that was here in Bradenton.
But before going to work for you was not like going to the office for so many other people, because like you said, with the shoes and the things that you had to do that were different. What was that like? How was it different from going to the office for other people? Like, what did you have to do that was...
Well, for one thing, early in my career, for instance, this had nothing too much to do with the space program, but it was an interesting thing. I was designing a ice prevention system for a rocket launcher to prevent ice from forming on it during winter, you know, because
Yeah.
so one of the best ice prevention systems in the world was on the radio towers up on top of the Empire State Building in New York. So I called the people that were in charge of that, and they invited me up. So I went up to the Empire State Building and actually was climbing on the radio towers that were way above the observation deck that they allowed people to go to. So
Oh my
that,
gosh.
that was on a cold January day, you know, because that's when ice would be most likely
Yeah.
to form. And they had a good ice prevention system, which was basically electrical heaters and sensors and development type things. But it was pretty cold up there and windy.
I can imagine.
The wind was blowing, and you know, the Empire State Building sways back and forth about 10 feet in a wind like that.
Really?
You wouldn't realize it,
Yeah.
but it has to in order to be able to not break.
Oh
So
my
that was
gosh.
an interesting thing. And
Yeah.
other types of things, when I was on the Apollo program, have to go out. We spent a lot of time at a desk writing procedures, making sure that everything that was done to inspect the lunar module, everything that was done to test it, everything that was done before it was launched was going to be exactly the way we wanted it. So it takes a long time to write that stuff.
Right.
You write it down in books and you double check things and you go through procedures when you're doing all that. And one of the things that we had to do was, of course, when it was out on the launch pad, we would go out on the launch pad and go up the elevator and go out over this great big bridge from the launch tower over to the rocket, and then climb inside and do a bunch of stuff. There was a kind of a little room built around the outside of the rocket so we could go in there and do our testing without having to actually get into the lunar module.
Yeah.
But walking across that tower, again, was very high up, you know, and a beautiful sight there. You could stand up there and you could see over the Atlantic Ocean. You know, you thought you could probably see all the way over to Europe. Of course, you couldn't. But it was a beautiful type of a thing to be able to get up there and do.
Yeah.
And once in a while, we had to send a team of safety people out there because I don't know if you're familiar with, I think it's called agoraphobia, which is fear of space.
Oh, like claustrophobia?
It's the opposite of claustrophobia.
Oh.
That this is like
Oh,
a
yeah,
fear of being in open space.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
not
open space, yeah.
afraid of being fallen, or vertigo, where you're afraid of getting dizzy and stuff.
Yeah.
And we'd have people who might have been working with us for a few months, and they'd go across that little ladder. You know, it's kind of like a platform, and it had rails on both sides, just enough for one person to walk across. And all of a sudden, they would look down, and something would snap in their minds, and that they really wouldn't be able to move. So they grabbed a hold of the railings, and they had a grip on the railings that were, you know, you just couldn't let go. So we'd have to send a team of a couple of people out there to pry them loose
Oh my
from the
gosh.
railing and get them back in to the launch tower and back down to ground. And then we take away their badge, and they were never allowed on the launch tower again.
Oh my gosh.
So you had to have a badge to do everything there for training and all that. But that's a thing that you never know who that's going to happen to. So fortunately, it never happened to me.
Oh, good.